same military capacities. This is nonsensical.
There was a leak that Dem leadership quietly wants the strikes to continue because they were going to do it anyways in the future, despite it being politically unpopular. Yes, this is a win-win. This is a win-win. This is a win for the Democrats. They don't get to, they get to hang the unpopularity of the war on Donald Trump's neck. Anyway, yeah, let's, we're going to do the Tucker Carlson rhetorical jujitsu in a second, because I do think it's, wait, hold on. Oh, this is the one. I do think it's important to understand like how dominant a right-wing anti-Zionist can be when talking to liberal Zionists in general.
Where they're going.
Senator.
Where they're going.
But
I don't think it's fair.
It's a trick question.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Let me answer the question for everybody in America. The answer, yes. It's good that the terrorist regime, their military has been, and capabilities have been degraded radically. The question, Mike, though, is political. It's the political question.
No.
What is the political impact? What's the impact in the Straits? What's the impact in the region?
Joe, in all due respect, if you ask the American people, if you have the choice of degrading the military structure in Iran, but having gasoline be $6 a gallon,
right,
and our economy falling into a deep recession where millions lose their job, what do you think of
Senator, you're not listening to me. That's the political side.
No, it's not political.
Okay.
It's a consequence, just like Mika said.
All right, why don't we talk about the Yankees, because you're not following me here.
I am
with all
following
due
you.
respect.
I just don't agree with you.
No, what you don't understand me. There's a big difference. I would say that most Americans would say it's a good thing that it's degraded. Would they agree that we should have gone to war, Mike? I think most Americans, you look at the polls, they don't want this war.
Okay.
They don't want this war, but there is, it's something that I think the Democrats should be, I think it's something, with all due respect, Democrats should be clear about. Iran has tried to kill Americans since 1979.
Okay.
Two things, hold on. Two things can be true at once. It can be good that Iran's killing machine has been degraded.
By the way, some of y'all sound exactly like this, okay? Some of y'all sound exactly like this when you're like, well, two things can be true at once. And you know why Joe's saying that, right? You know why Morning Joe is saying that shit, because he wants to justify Trump, right? You want to justify the actions. That's the only reason why you do this, like, oh, two things could be true at once. You just have to remember that. There is, when push comes to shove, okay, when the pedal hits the metal, people who are still trying to find like a moral center in these sorts of incidents are just doing the work of okay? That's it. That's it. And in this case, Joe obviously is lying. Sometimes people are a little bit more honest about finding this moral center, where there are, of course, just like every other government, there are criticisms you can make, right? There are criticisms you can make. But they are completely marginal or inconsequential and aid the far greater evil when brought up.
At the same time, the consequences may outweigh the good that come from that.
Okay,
it's okay
look,
to say
I don't disagree with you.
I don't disagree.
You know, the fact that the leader Khamenei is gone, no one regrets that. The fact that Iran,
I think, I don't know. Do you not regret that? You probably should regret that. If you have two working brain cells, you should be regretting that decision right now, considering that he was the most restrained individual sitting on top of this entire government. Like, even on that front, you should be saying, no, it's actually, Donald Trump should not have assassinated Ali Khamenei. It was not a real victory at all.
has less ability to create military trouble is no one disputes that. But you have to look, I don't think it's political, to be very honest with you. It's the consequences, the military, the geopolitical, the economic consequences.
I'm saying geopolitical.
You got to let me finish.
You just said what I was saying, the geopolitical consequences.
Right, it's not just the economic consequences. Right. Again, let me ask the question again. If you ask the American people, and you had the package together, because we don't know how bad it's going to
Right.
get, but we know it's pretty bad now. I think most of them would have said, no, we shouldn't have gone to war. And by the way,
most of them have said that.
yeah, we shouldn't have gone to war.
Right.
And I'll tell you this: if they would have done it right, if they would have invoked.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. There's a right way to do this.
Voted, if the Republicans would have voted with us on the War Powers Act, all these questions would have been asked ahead of time.
Right.
Instead of Donald Trump's willy-nilly, one day yes, one day no, this is our reason, that is our reason.
Right.
So I don't think the question can be taken in just one slice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why can't we the Iranian children with a dual tap strike at their school, but legally? Okay. You see, the war efforts I agree with, the assassinations I agree with. It's just that he didn't ask me for my approval, and I disagree with that. But this guy is not funny enough to unban you. Do we have Chuck Moore because he's a lib or a Jew? Yeah, okay, dude. Okay, buddy. Okay, buddy. The intellectual might of every the intellectual might of every Pestany fan immediately revealed. Still running on this route. Talking about, do we hate Chuck Moore because he's a lib or a Jew? Yeah, dude, it really, you nailed it. Like, the implication is that this is an anti-Semitic community. Shut the fuck up. No one believes this shit. Oh. Have you considered that Joe quite literally has to take this position or his father-in-law's corpse will rise up from the dead and rip his cock off? I had not considered that. When Trump was failing to properly oppose an official U.S. enemy, Russia, Dems didn't hesitate to take action and impeach Trump from the right. And when Trump assassinates the leader of Iran and drops 8,000 bombs on the capital city, Dems are quiet because he's actually carrying out longstanding U.S. goals, which they support. Yes. You don't suck off Nazis like Epstein does. His audience is rife with Nazi supporters of Israel and the other kind. Yeah, Zio-Nazis and neo-Nazis. That's why Hasan made Noah Cullen leave. Yeah. I was like, Noah, get out of here so I can be anti-Semitic. Yeah. Rippy Torres. Rippy Torres also coming out swinging at the settler terrorism.
Underway. You have argued, and I'll put this quote, we need to end this war right now. If the U.S. ends the war right now, as you're arguing for, could that leave Iran with a more extreme anti-American regime and even lead to a potentially larger conflict for the next administration?
But the administration has already said their goal is not regime change. They are perfectly satisfied to leave in charge of Iran a regime that is going to be worse for American interests than the previous regime. What we know is that the minute we stop bombing, this new regime is going to start rebuilding their missile capacity and their drone capacity. The estimates are that it'll only take them a handful of months to reconstitute that threat. So what did we get at the end of this war? We're going to waste billions of dollars. We're going to get dozens, if not hundreds of Americans killed. We're going to start new conflicts in the region. And when it's all said and done, a more provocative regime is going to be in charge with the same military capacities. This is nonsensical.
There was a leak that Dem leadership quietly wants the strikes to continue because they were going to do it anyways in the future, despite it being politically unpopular. Yes, this is a win-win. This is a win-win. This is a win-win for the Democrats. They get to hang the unpopularity of the war on Donald Trump's neck. And it's literally something that they want. It's perfect for them. Democrats love dealing from a position of no power for this reason. Because when they have no power, they can fundraise, they can keep their seats, they can present themselves as an opposition party, even though they're not doing a very good job about it right now. But they also simultaneously don't have to They don't have to have the moral failure of like doing this deeply unpopular thing. They don't even calculate the morality, to be fair. All right. What do they get out of this? They've gained nothing. Their calculation is they get to go to war with Iran. That's what it is. They want it. There are a shit ton of Democrats by way of the lobby or from their own personal ideological commitments that love Israel and also put Israel first. It's that simple. But there's also a conflicting interest that they have here where, they don't want to lose their seats. The audience needs to know when you are gay, when I'm gay. Got it. They gain by allowing themselves to be the sensible moderates. Yes. This way, the goals are advanced. Israel's goals are
Let's bring in
advanced. Okay, and they don't get to have that around their neck.
Security and defence expert, Professor Michael Clark. Where do we begin? My goodness, that statement. What did you make of it?
Well, it's what, Leah, you and I said about half an hour before it appeared would probably happen. We were discussing it, that he was likely to back down on this or likely to find room to not implement it because it was such a serious step to take, which would spin the war completely out of anyone's control. It occurs to me also there may be a technical reason for this. I mean, if you look at what the United States was talking about doing, attacking the whole infrastructure, there's over 400 power generation plants in Iran. It's a big, physically a big country, much bigger than Britain, 90-odd million people, producing about 90,000 megawatts of power. And so there's a lot of them. And it might well be that the military said, when he said prepare this plan, the military might have said, well, what effect are you trying to have, boss? We could take out the small ones, wouldn't have a big effect. We could take out the big ones, have a big effect. What do you want? I think that a lot of time must have gone into thinking about what they would actually do if he carried through on his threats, and they only had 48 hours to do it. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if the military didn't say to him, Mr. President, we're not sure what target set would have the effect you want to have, and it'll take us a bit of time to work that out and to actually plan for the sort of attacks that we need on those targets. So it strikes me there might be a technical side behind this as well. But overwhelmingly, this is Donald Trump thinking finally about the effect that this would have, because the Iranians showed no sign of backing down. They simply said, well, if you do that, we'll do the same in the Gulf, and we'll go for the desalination plants, which will be disastrous, completely disastrous to Gulf societies, because there they all are. By definition, desalination plants are on the coast, and so they're all along the other side of the Gulf. Very easy to target from Iran's point of view. Very, very vulnerable. And they seem to be prepared to carry that out. And interestingly, the Iranians are now saying, we didn't have any talks with them, either directly or through intermediaries.
Yeah, that's what I thought was really interesting, because they're framing this as,
unilateral decision.
Yeah.
You backed off, Mr. President. Taco. Trump always chickens out. That's what they will say. We stood up to you, you backed out. The Iranians think that they're winning. I mean, they've established conditions. They've said we want a closure of all American bases. We want Gulf money to reconstruct Iranian damage after this war. There's zero chance that those conditions... But the fact that they're naming these conditions tells you that they think they're winning. They think that they're in a position to establish some terms rather than just wanting the war to stop. So as misguided as that may be, because ultimately I think this may bring down the Iranian regime, not now, but maybe in 6 months' time or 2 years' time. They may win the war against America and then lose the war against their own people and the other states in the Gulf who will have nothing to do with them after this war. So I think in the long term, Trump's policy might work, but not now this way. That's the difference.
Oh, Michael, I could talk to you about this for hours and hours. We're going to have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your analysis. It's always top draw.
Buried but breathing. A survivor beneath the rubble. A rescuer holding on to hope. The reality of airstrikes on Tehran, despite President Trump's talk of potential breakthrough.
They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We're going to get together today by probably phone.
News of talks came in a Truth Social post. The commander-in-chief putting plans to bomb Iran's power plants on hold.
We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
But there's no sign of any end to this joint combat mission. US forces continuing to strike Iranian military targets. Israeli forces blowing up bridges in Lebanon. But Trump's closest ally is also talking about an opportunity.
Earlier today, I spoke with our friend President Trump. President Trump believes there's an opportunity to leverage the significant achievements we have made together with the US military in order to achieve the objectives of the war through an agreement that will safeguard our vital interests. At the same time, we continue to carry out strikes both in Iran and in Lebanon.
Donald Trump says they aren't speaking to the new Supreme Leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, and don't know if he's still alive, but to a top person. Not so, says the Speaker of Iran's parliament. No negotiations have been held with the US, and fake news is used to manipulate the financial and oil markets and escape the quagmire in which the US and Israel are trapped, he posted on X. It's the president's envoy, Steve Witkoff, who's doing the negotiating, alongside Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. But who'd run the Strait of Hormuz if they strike a deal?
Maybe me. Maybe me.
You want the United States to be
Me and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is.
No deal to sign yet, just a guitar on a visit to Graceland, the home of Elvis Presley. The president pinning his hopes, perhaps, on a little more, not less conversation.
You never know. These are hard to sign.
David Blevins, Sky News in Washington.
on Iran, you said today that...
Move over. Let's get it.
We're seeing the new taco narratives floated today. I can almost picture a total withdrawal of the U.S. from the region, with Trump claiming we're getting a cut of Iranian fees on Hormuz traffic. Trump tells reporters that the Strait of Hormuz can be jointly controlled by me and the Ayatollah. We're going to control the Strait and Iran's going to pay for it. Ha, yok çıktım.
Mr. President, Iran's foreign ministry says you're not telling the truth when it comes to productive conversations to end the war.
They're going to have to get themselves better public relations. We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement. Perhaps that hasn't been conveyed. The communication, as you know, has been blown to pieces. They're unable to talk to each other. So we've had very strong talks. Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner had them. They went, I would say, perfectly. I would say that if they carry through with that, it'll end that problem, that conflict, and I think it'll end it very, very substantially. We have very much in mind our partners in the Middle East. We've had great relationships with a lot of them, as you know. A lot of them were surprisingly hit, and I was surprised to see it, and so was everyone else, but we have, they're very much in mind in the discussions. So the discussions took place yesterday. They went into yesterday evening. They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We're going to get together today by probably phone because it's very hard to find a country. It's very hard for them to get out, I guess. But we'll at some point very, very soon meet. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts.
Are they speaking with Iran?
A top person, don't forget. We've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with a man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. It's a little tough. We've wiped out everybody.
Are they speaking with Iran?
A top person, don't forget. We've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with a man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. It's a little tough. We've wiped out everybody.
Is that the Supreme Leader?
No, not the Supreme Leader.
We don't.
Well, nobody heard of the second Supreme Leader.
Are these direct?
We have not heard from the son. Every once in a while you see a statement made, but we don't know if he's living. But the people that seem to be running it, and they seem that based on really fact, because things they've said have taken place.
Can you say what that is?
Again, I don't want him to be killed. Okay? I don't want him to be killed.
Mr. President,
nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants that job right now, you know? Nobody's exactly looking forward to being the head of that particular country, but perhaps we'll be able to solve that problem.
Mr. President, if these talks go well, and you reach
I don't think he's going to be a businessman.
if these talks go well and you reach a ceasefire agreement with Iran, do you believe Israel would abide by that agreement?
I think Israel will be very happy with what we have. We just spoke to Israel a little while ago. I think they'll be very happy. This will be peace for Israel, long-term peace, guaranteed peace. If this happens, and I can't guarantee it, but I think it's going to. My life is a deal. That's all I do is deals my whole life. I think this is something that's going to happen. And why wouldn't it happen? So tomorrow morning sometime, their time, we were expected to blow up their largest electric generating plant that cost over $10 billion to build. It's a very good one. There was no dearth of money. And one shot, it's gone. It collapses. Why would they want that? So they called. I didn't call. They called. They want to make a deal. And we are very willing to make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. And it's got to be no more wars, no more nuclear weapons. They're not going to have nuclear weapons anymore. They're agreeing to that. Any of that stuff, there's no deal.
And if they don't go well, sir, and you target...
You said you want to get the enriched uranium. How are you going to get the enriched uranium? Are you going to send...
Very easy. If we have a deal with them, we're going down and we'll take it ourselves.
Sir, and if you...
Iranian capital. Mohammed, denials from the Iranian leaders that they're actually talking to the US, but Donald Trump's insisting they are.
Yeah, that's a situation, Imran. The Iranian leaders were very quick to respond to that tweet by Donald Trump, saying that there is no indirect or direct negotiation going on between the two sides. But the understanding is that there is mediation. Mediation has never stopped since the beginning of this war, even though that mediation did not amount to a real rapprochement between the two sides. According to the Iranian side, the Iranians have a lot of suspicion and lack of trust towards President Trump and the Israelis because of what happened in June and what happened also in February 28th, when the two sides were negotiating and were there prospects for peace. And at the same time, those two countries attacked Iran. So they don't want a repeat of that situation. And whatever comes from Washington, they take it with a pinch of salt. And they are very clear to their public. The discourse that is being disseminated internally is much, much stronger than what is being said to the outside world. Internally, the television and the Iranian media are talking about the Americans backing down, buying time because they couldn't defeat Iran in the battlefront, and that Donald Trump is bluffing the Iranians once again, and he's trying to deceive them, buying time because they are preparing for stronger strikes. They need time probably to prepare that, and that's why they are doing this, and also they are doing to reduce the amount of tension regarding the prices of oil and so on. So it's just manipulation of time and manipulation of the whole situation for the benefit of the Americans and the Israelis, and in order to strike harder against Iran. So the Iranians are saying that they have to rely on the only thing of which they are sure, the only thing that is boosting their morale and helping them defeat the enemy in this war.
I'm on Fox now. Let's go.
One of the most ridiculous embargoes of all time that has only gotten more deadly as time has gone on.
Move over, Sophocles. 2 words, useful idiots, okay? Useful idiots to the regime. Pinkos to, typical.
Yeah, he's wearing $1,500 Cartier sunglasses, okay, while the people cannot eat in Cuba. And if they speak out like this guy is, they'd be thrown in jail with no redress. This is absurd. And all these humanitarian radicals, Laura, are staying at 5-star hotels.
Humanitarian
while
radicals.
Cubans are starving and enduring blackouts. Rather than making those glittery hearts, they should have spent the craft money on maybe feeding these people and shut their mouths. This is not what freedom looks like, what Cuba's offering their people. This is suppression and oppression, and it's gone on for decades
Raymond,
now. Time to wrap this up.
Since we're in California, it reminds me of Gavin Newsom at the French Laundry during COVID, Nancy Pelosi at the hair salon during COVID. The rules never apply to them. They eat cake and they eat their lobster and the other people. Oh, Raymond, thank you for going to the airport for us. Great reporting.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for us tonight. Make sure to follow me on social media. Jillian and I did a little back and forth. You want to see that?
By the way, the hits are going to keep coming. The hits are going to keep coming. I know for a fact. Be on the lookout for a liberal hit pieces too. I think they want to nip this shit in the bud before it turns into another Gaza situation where mainstream media completely lost control over the narrative. And I think that is the unironic reason as to why they're so actively doing a full spectrum propaganda by belittling the stated purpose of the humanitarian aid convoy What have they done compared to you and others similar in your position? They advocate for the blockade to continue. You're going to answer for those $1,500 Cartiers, though? No, the fuck I'm not. First of all, I don't think they were that much. Secondly, I didn't even buy them myself. I did put the transition lenses in it, though. Also, last but not least, it's utterly fucking irrelevant. Like, what difference does it make how expensive my clothing is? Are you fucking stupid? Yeah, what am I supposed to do? Not wear glasses? Hey, I know you can't see without them, but like, is my drip causing Cubans to suffer? Or is it the blockade? That's it. Yeah, I'm rich. Also, you have no choice in what kind of hotel you can stay in. You have to stay in that's the other, like, literally the only available hotels that can receive 600 people. Like, there are not enough readily available random houses that people can stay in. There was like 600 people from all around the world that were coming in. And the American government restricts where you can stay. Most people don't know that, though, which is why to them it sounds so insane. It's one of those things. It's like with Israel, right? When Israel does something so heinous and people go, there's no way that's real. That's got to be anti-Semitic. And then you're like, oh my God, it is real. What the fuck? But what's hilarious about it, what's hilarious about it is the situation. Like the goal of this, at least from my perspective, is to bring awareness to what the Cubans were going through, what the Cubans are still going through. But outside of that, it was to expose, it was to investigate and potentially bring awareness to and expose the complex nature of these blockades, the complex nature of like American sanctions and American blockades, and how it has disrupted daily Cuban existence for 60 fucking years at this point. And a big part of that, like, weird, and unnecessary restrictions is, ironically, the restrictions on who or where Americans can and can't stay. Anyway, let's get back to situation monitoring, and I'll cover that stuff
which
again.
is their missiles and their drones, and there is no change in that course of action. Tonight also there was a new wave of missiles and drones launched against Israel and the region. So Iran is not talking about negotiations right now, and they think that it will take time. But there have been phone calls between the foreign minister and his counterparts in the region and beyond, talking to the his South Korean counterpart, also the Pakistani and the Omanis. So that channel of communication is ongoing, but at the same time, the narrative here to the internal public is that nothing has changed so far.
Dude, you got to keep spamming this. And then I'll give you the fucking itinerary and the 600 people that were on the island with me. You got to keep spamming it, dude.
Day 24 of the war has been a day in which things didn't happen and did happen. The things that didn't happen was the threat by President Trump after midnight tonight to attack the power centers, the power stations of Iran. There are 400 or so of them. These are some of the bigger ones. The Bushehr nuclear power station is not the biggest, but it's the one that everybody thinks about. The Iranians said, well, of course, if you do that, then we will attack the power stations in the Gulf states, which would be extremely serious in itself. Even more than that, and the Iranians have implied this before, and they've already done it at least on one occasion, they said that they would attack the desalination plants along the Gulf Coast. And all of these societies really depend upon desalinated water, not just for drinking, but for all of the normal functions of their society. No society can live without clean water. There's only so much you can do with seawater. And all of these desalination plants, by definition, are on the coast. They're all vulnerable to Iran, very easy to attack. That would be a complete and utter disaster. Now, in theory, that is not going to happen, at least for 5 days. So that is something that today will not go down in history as having created. But this is something that will go down in history. The Israelis have actually increased their attacks on Lebanon, and this is important because they've begun to attack the bridges over the Litani River. There are 5 major bridges. They've attacked 2 of them, 3 of them. They'll probably attack all of them eventually. What the Israelis are trying to do is to separate this area south of the Litani River. Why would they want to do that? Very obviously.
By the way, what he's talking about in terms like this is quite literally a catastrophe of such magnitudes that is comparable to the Nakba, if not a larger number of people that are going to be ethnically cleansed from their homelands. It's unbelievable that Israel amidst like the bombing campaigns, still find the opportunity to go and seize Lebanese land, like to go and seize Lebanese territory.
When the war began on the 7th of October 2023 and Hezbollah began to send rockets into northern Israel, the Israelis had to evacuate 60,000 people from that area, from northern.
According to a post I just saw on IG, Israel and the U.S. just bombed energy plants in Iran. We'll find out soon enough.
Israel.
If that's
and
real
they were
or not.
away from their homes for well over a year. They didn't get back there until November 2024. And they don't want to have to do that again. So what they're doing, instead of actually getting these people out, they're taking control themselves of this area south of the Litani River. They're moving in to occupy southern Lebanon, almost certainly. They did that between 1982 and the year 2000. They spent 18 years there, and it still didn't really solve the problem. Indeed, it created the problem originally of Hezbollah. It looks as if they're about to do it again. It's one example of the fact that the Middle East will not be the same again after this war, whether it finishes in 5 days' time or in 2 months' time.
Dude, I'm saying, man, shit. Read logs, please. Iran's Fars news agency reports that U.S. Okay, I saw, man. Israeli strikes targeted energy infrastructure in Isfahan and Khorramshahr, including a gas management building, a pressure reduction station, and a gas pipeline linked to a power plant. Damage was reported to the facilities and nearby homes with no casualties recorded. Yeah, I think they want to draw out. They want to draw out a more militant response from Iran. They want to cause Iran to escalate in retaliation. Israel has actively played the role of a spoiler because they have a very different set of goals than the American side. Or it's not necessarily a different set of goals, but it's one that I guess you could say it's a different set of goals because America is still fine with like a fully destabilized Iran. Whether they achieve it or not is a totally different story. It's just that I don't think America is as predisposed, as invested in like the complete collapse of the Gulf, especially considering what that will do for American interests in the region and the unlimited money flows that they've gotten from the Gulf thus far. You understand? Israel, on the other hand, wants a weakened Gulf. I don't think America wants a weakened Gulf.
The fact is, everybody in the Middle East is having to reassess their politics and their security policy. And when those reassessments take place, this is going to be quite interesting and important. The difference between Shia and Sunni peoples within the Muslim faith. There are about 2 billion Muslims in the world. 10 or 15% of them are of the Shia faith, not the Sunni faith. But most of that 10 or 15% are concentrated across the Middle East. So these boundaries can be very sharp. It's not a trivial difference between Shia and Sunni Muslims, and they have fought violently in the past. When you think of it like this, Iran as a block of the leader of the Shia faith, and Saudi Arabia is the leader of the Sunni faith, and those are competitive societies in more or less every sense of the word. It looks pretty dramatic when you look at it as blocks of countries. But if we think about it in terms of population, where people live, it looks a bit different. Because in Saudi Arabia, the population is much more dispersed. In Iran, it's much more concentrated. And the group of Shia peoples in the Middle East concentrate down towards Yemen, a number of peoples in Turkey, not many elsewhere. And that sort of pattern is a pattern that will emerge as one of the drivers of the new politics of the whole region that will somehow take shape when this war is at some point over. Which goes back to the old reality, really, that
the dynamic might shift dramatically in this situation where Chinese interests might supersede what America is willing to do, especially because China gets all of its energy from the Gulf, including Iran, but not limited to Iran. So, I mean, I don't know how China operates, especially because they are so unimaginably restrained that
the latest on the
it's hard to see what they're doing as anything but weak. A Stimson Center analyst says Iran's impact and missile-fired ratio has been rising as the total count lowers. Stimson Center expert found Iran's confirmed impacts per projectile fired has been climbing steadily since the first day of the war. If Iran is losing, narrative is tracking the wrong numbers. Yes, missile and drone launch rates are down 90%, but hit rate, or confirmed impacts per projectile fired, has been climbing steadily since day one. Raw impact counts dropped sharply after February 28th, but most of that drop is just fewer launches. That's at least partly the result of U.S.-Israeli strikes destroying launches and stockpiles. The real question, of the missiles and drones Iran does fire, how many are getting through? In the opening days of the war, Iran fired more than 500 ballistic missiles and over 2,000 drones. The hit rate was below 5%. Defenses held. The barrage looked overwhelming. Most of it was stopped. Launch rates fell 90+% over the following 2 weeks. Something counterintuitive happened. The hit rate started climbing. Iran was firing less, but hitting more often. Now, part of that is also because they started using like uninterceptable hits, like the cluster munitions that they've been deploying, where they unload the 80 sub-munitions. They explode the 80 sub-munitions in high altitude. Those are not interceptable. The other thing that they did was they successfully took out Israel's and America's eyes and ears. Yeah, even the 90% is a deceptive number. This is also true. They are down 90% from the day one mag dump, but they seem to have held steady since then. That's the other side of the story. This is also correct. The first day barrage, and this is the same thing that happened, I think, in the 12-day war as well, where they mag dump all their old shit to exhaust the systems and see whatever goes through. And they do openly say that, by the way. Yeah, mag dump Lamau is funny, but it's like low-key what they're doing. They did this in the 12-day war as well, where they just like will literally sell, we'll salvo all the old shit, probably probing, pen testing, and analyzing what the interceptions look like. On March 10th, Iran launched 35 drones to the UAE, 9 penetrated air defenses, around 25% interception rate. This isn't an accident. It's an operational pivot. Iran shifted from mass attrition, overwhelming defenses with volume, to precision disruption, striking selected targets where even one hit produces outsized damage. The energy infrastructure campaign, March 18th and 20th, shows this perfectly. Ras Laffan LNG, 17% of Qatar's exports offline. Kuwait's Mina al-Ahmadi refinery hit 2 days in a row. Saudi's Samaref refinery struck. Small salvos, fixed targets, outsized consequences. The Dimona and Arad strikes on March 21st are the starkest example. Small number of missiles fired, 2 penetrated defenses, causing injuries and sparking an IDF investigation. Netanyahu even called it a very difficult evening. Small salvo, outsized consequences. Bottom line, a degraded Iran firing fewer, better aimed missiles as softer targets may be more effective at imposing a civilian and economic cost than the massive salvos of February 28th. Simple volume was never Iran's comparative advantage. Disruption was. And on the metric that matters, cost imposed per missile fired, Iran may actually getting more effective as the war goes on, not less. The impact data come from a data set I built by open source reporting, ACLED, Al Jazeera's live tracker, ISW, critical threads, daily updates, etc. Tracking confirmed strike impacts, not launches. Launch totals come from CENTCOM, JPost, Al Jazeera, UAE, MOD. The hit rate trend is directional. Treat the specific percentages as illustrative, not precise. So yeah, while the American and Israeli government are looking for a propaganda victory here, and they keep claiming that the Iranian strike capabilities have been degraded, well, they're doing more damage now. And at the end of the day, the goal of interceptions are supposed to be to limit the damage, that limit the economic and civilian casualties.
War with Iran. In President Trump's new message, Matt Rivers is in Doha, the capital of Qatar, with the breaking news. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Michael. Yeah, some breaking news this morning with President Trump coming out on social media, posting to Truth Social, saying that he has ordered the U.S. military for a period of 5 days to stop any and all attacks against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure. This, as he says, there is ongoing negotiations between Iran and the United States that he says are going well, and as such, he has ordered this temporary halt to military action, a very big deal as this entire region remains on edge. With just hours before time runs out on President Trump's ultimatum to Iran, the president sounding optimistic as it appears both sides are getting closer to reaching a deal to stop the fighting. Trump posting on social media this morning based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week. I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period. But the president making no mention of other. It comes as Iran's critical infrastructure is already taking a hit. In a video posted by Iranian state media, a woman capturing the moment an airstrike hit the Electricity Authority headquarters in Tehran last week, killing several engineers and civilians. Iran's president mocking Trump, saying, "The Strait of Hormuz is open to all except those who violate our soil. We firmly confront delirious threats on the battlefield." And the Iranian parliament says their next targets will be U.S. financial assets. This as Iran ramps up its attacks on Israel. This dramatic video shows an Iranian ballistic missile slamming into a residential neighborhood. Just moments later, a second Iranian direct strike in a city nearby. Both missiles breaching Israel's high-tech, multi-layered air defenses. Our Tom Sufi Burridge was there.
You can see the crater where that Iranian missile hit, but look at the force of the blast, blowing away much of these buildings. We're told dozens of people, families were inside at the time.
And stateside, a somber memorial in Florida. Major Cody Cork, one of 13 Americans to have died in the Iran war, was laid to rest. Robin, once again, a very big deal this morning with the U.S. military to stop attacking energy infrastructure and power plants. Notably, though, Robin, the president did not say he would call off all military activity in Iran. Things remain very tense in this part of the world.
Yeah, he posted that just moments ago. You're on it, Matt. Thank you.
Well, here in Beirut, what's evident and terrifying for people is how this war has moved into the heart of the capital, and it's hitting civilians hardest. Here's some of what I've seen in the city under attack.
A building in central Beirut, already evacuated, suddenly gives way. Concrete folding in on itself, dust swallowing the street. This is now all that's left of it. Israel says it issued evacuation warnings and claims it was targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. Residents say they were unaware. There are no reported casualties, but the absence of deaths does not mean people aren't deeply scarred. This is the heart of the city, and no one thought the war would come here.
In previous wars, there appeared to be some lines that the attacks by Israel...
They have to keep doing it, man. They have to. They just can't. They'll die if they don't like genocide or ethnically cleanse another area. It's just, do you want Israel to explode? Literally just one speed, dude. No matter what happens, this is what they did with Gaza over and over again. Constantly just fucking pummeling whatever was within reach. Yeah, the Zionists are ethnically cleansing southern Lebanon using genocidal tactics deployed in Gaza. Israeli journalists report this openly, and yet there's silence from the Western media. It's true. It's unfucking believable.
Were focused in southern Lebanon and in the southern suburbs of Beirut. But this is central Beirut, and this was a residential building. So there's a real sense and a climate of fear that's where in Beirut is now safe.
Despite the destruction, life continues. 69-year-old Samia Harb has lived in the building just behind the one that collapsed for more than 20 years. She says when the evacuation warning came, there was no time to think, only to flee.
What do you think when you see all of this destruction in front of your house?
I believe that. Okay, let's continue with this.
She tells me I'm at breaking point.
Hold on.
This time is worse than before. We went through a war previously, but it wasn't like this. This is harder. It's happening next to us. That fear lingers for Samia and millions affected by this war. Abu Allah is among those already displaced by this conflict. His family left southern Lebanon and they're now in Beirut. But the war has followed them. He recently witnessed a strike near where they're sheltering. But he's not directing his anger at Hezbollah.
Do you feel like they've dragged Lebanon into this war?
Hezbollah is a thought, it's not a party. The Shia Muslims are all with Hezbollah. When they say they want to destroy Hezbollah, they're saying they want to destroy a sect. If this resistance didn't exist, Israel would have taken southern Lebanon a long time ago.
Beirut's southern suburbs, home to hundreds of thousands of civilians, but also Hezbollah, is now a ghost town. Over 1 million people have been displaced since this war began. More than 1,200 killed. Now, the center of the capital has become part of the battlefield. Back at the site, as the dust settles, there are attempts to rebuild. There is visible ruptures, not just in concrete, but in the idea that this war had limits.
Ayatollah Khamenei is dead.
Oh my God. This is yet another one of those instances where like they are not doing it. Like these guys are their worst fucking enemies, bro. Holy moly, it's bad. It's ironic because like the New York Times piece that we just read is like a soft hit piece, right? This is supposed to be somewhat of a puff piece. This is supposed to showcase like the perspective of the Pahlavists And yet, because of the way that they approach the issue and because of how unjustifiable their position is, especially in the aftermath of the American and Israeli bombing campaigns, it's virtually impossible to make their framework look normal and good. See? Told you, by the way. Anyway, here's what I said. Deeply cynical people have made it their lives' work to sit around the comfort of their homes and undermine the stated purpose of sending humanitarian aid while bringing awareness of the blockade that has caused tremendous torment to the Cuban people, which are some of the bravest, most resilient people I've ever had the honor of meeting. They framed every collaborative action with the Cuban people from an outright evil framework. All this advances the Trump administration's goals of engaging in yet another unjustifiable regime change effort. We have asphyxiated this island with the hopes of ending its unlimited potential through a sequence of bureaucratic sanctions designed with the sinister purpose of remaining invisible for plausible deniability and to shift the blame back to redistributive policies. My goal was to investigate the hidden ways in which sanctions impact the daily lives of Cubans beyond the oil blockade that started with secondary sanctions in 2019 and reached its total blockade status recently. The things I learned from speaking to doctors, engineers, and ordinary Cubans shocked me to my core. I believe the goals of those who choose to belittle the work of the activists and politicians is to serve as a distraction in an effort to defend our government's responsibility in the collective punishment Cubans are experiencing. They are not printing that. Written by AI. Bitch, I just wrote it right here in front of you. It's not an essay. It's a quote. And they will print it. They are most definitely not printing that. How do you write under pressure? Sign it, Dr. Jahan. Who, not which, towards the beginning? Oh, I got it. All right. Write this instead. Sussy. People who, not people which. Thank you. You're right. Hey, I lost my channel's monetization a few days ago. And I've encountered a standard fan channel problem with the reused content. Do you think you can send your team my link to see if they can help? Yeah. Send it to the mods. Can you write my essay? It's due on Friday. Thanks. No. 500 word essay due tonight.
That's the thing. That's the main problem. People are good, basically. Thank you.
FD said he's making a vid about how Mersheimer is wrong. Oh no, I hope he doesn't do that. It's like Mersheimer is probably one of the most vindicated academics. He has even shifted my position on it. And I think it's undeniable. To say that America doesn't have the power over Israel is obviously stupid, but Mersheimer doesn't make that argument anyway, right? Mersheimer's argument is through a system of unlimited influence peddling, one of the most sophisticated influence peddling operations that America's ever withstood, Israel has been able to design American foreign policy to suit its purpose.
Kill you.
So you've been threatened?
Yeah. They've imposed restrictions on crowds gathering in support of Palestinians and Iranians.
FDD signifier. Okay, stop. No, FD signifier is my goat.
The annual Quds Day event in London was heavily monitored by authorities over fears there could...
Guys, the reality of the matter is, due to a system of successful repression, and also the only outside groups having no real popular momentum, popular mobilization capabilities on the ground, Iran doesn't have a next day after plan at all. You got MEK on the one side and Pahlavis on the other side. And all of the internal forces that could have actually amounted to significant response have either been killed or are in jail. Okay? So there is no next day after. There is no like pathway, charting a pathway towards like a liberal secular Iran for these reasons. Right? It's just not, it's not happening.
It clashes with
bad Israel. I mean, I never thought I would see the day where there would be a significant number of Iranian diaspora that are actively defending Iran. And I know that there are many Iranians in my community, both inside of Iran and certainly outside of Iran, that probably feel the same way as well. Like that's unironically a wild change of events in a very short period of time. And it is almost exactly as I predicted it would, which is when America and Israel show their hand and force a lot of these people to recognize that there was no real interest in defending the safety and security of Iranians living in Iran, their relatives, their immediate relatives, and no real investment in like bringing about some kind of like liberal secular democracy or anything like that. Iranians are very smart people. They very quickly picked up what they were putting down, right? And now what remains is some of the most insane, cynical Zionist supporters of Israel. For the record, I've shown you. You talking about me, bitch? You want an update from the Iranian diaspora in Germany? They're fucking insane. No water. I'm not going to get into it. We're not talking about Germany, okay? But what I will say is this. This reality was shown to those with eyes to see, including in this community, when we looked at the polling after the 12-day war. When the 12-day war unfolded, the Iranian diaspora population were majority in disapproval of the actions. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people who are so desperate that they truly think that America and Israel could potentially help them. There's a shit ton of propaganda in that direction. But no one wants to see their fucking relatives perish. No one wants to see beautiful cities that have been around for thousands of fucking years get destroyed, get reduced to rubble. No one wants to see the imagery of black clouds dumping oil back on top of their fucking immediate relatives with chemical warfare. Who the fuck would be in favor of that? You have to be an absolute psychopath. I have 3 cousins here. All 3 went there and posted reels and shit. I'm Brian Kill Me in a video game.
I'm Brian Kill Me.
The diaspora don't see themselves responsible for the deaths in Manab. They don't see the role they're playing by manufacturing consent for these deaths. The Iranian, the diaspora, I'm hunted by my responsibility in the death of those kids. Think about how much closer the levels of population and influence are between the USA and Iran compared to like Cuba or Iraq. I don't think that I don't think that the American population's overall opinion on Cuba is one born out of like full knowledge of the events that are unfolding. For the record, I think if more and more Americans were aware of our design in Cuba, they would be very frustrated. It's totally endless. It is totally unnecessary. I hear you say, but the Iranian diaspora don't hold a candle to my fellow Cuban diasporas. They really celebrate the death of Cuban children. Many do understand and still celebrate it. Yeah, I mean, I'll be real. I'll keep it $150 with you. I don't know what the hell happened there. Okay, I think like maybe because there's like more valid reasons to oppose the Iranian government from the perspective of people, like because not everyone is like there are a lot of people who haven't just simply been like propagandized into being frustrated with the Iranian government. There's valid reasons to be angry at it. Obviously, it's irrelevant in this point. Right? It's irrelevant at this point in time. But like with the Cuban situation, like you got to be a real fucking diehard anti-communist to just like straight up. Also, I mean, it's a longer history, right? There's a much longer history of American intervention in Cuba than there is in Iran, like much longer history. Our story with Iran starts in 1953. Our story with Cuba started far before the Cuban Revolution, right? It's 100+ years at this point of direct intervention. Yeah, it starts with the Spanish War. It starts with the Cuban pseudo-republic. The Cuban pseudo-republic, which never achieved true sovereignty from American intervention. And time again, the Republicans and the liberals, both in Cuba, kept demanding American military intervention. And America came in and gave that military intervention, creating its upper caste of white Cuban society that dominated the industrial sector, the casino system that was designed, that was hyper-exploitative. If you think that Cuba's current tourism sector exposes the class contradictions, you have no idea how bad it used to be when Cuba had like child prostitution and unlimited gambling, unlimited casinos. It was an island for some of the worst Americans to come in and use it like a fucking playground. Yeah, gangsterismo. A lot of them are unironically trained and paid by the CIA. America only deployed a small amount of the Bay of Pigs. Many stayed on boats or in other places, including my grandfather, who was trained by the CIA and was ready to ship off to Cuba as reinforcements. Should the invasion prove successful? Yes.
This program is brought to you by Exter.
Overzealous is the #1 dick rider of both Che Guevara and Fidel Castro, which I respect. It's a respectable position. Okay, these are some of the best people that have ever been invented. Okay. One other thing I will say about my experiences with the Cuban population was how much they cherished the revolutionary spirit in every action that they took. I interviewed I interviewed the person responsible for the